Okay, everybody can hear me now. Okay, good. Phew. Wow, now I have to say everything again. There could be worse problems. All right, thank you, everybody. We are so glad that you're here, and we're super grateful that you have let us know that we had some sound difficulties. So we're back online now, and I just wanted to welcome all of you to our 26th annual California Condor release. This release happens every year in Arizona atop the Vermilion National Monument, Vermilion Cliffs. And there are an awful lot of partners that make this event possible. So I wanted to give a shout out to not only our friends at Vermilion Cliffs National Monument, but also with BLM Arizona. They are the partners that help us to make sure this event is a success. We also work closely with the Arizona Game and Fish Department, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Grand Canyon National Park, Kaibab and Dixie National Forests, BLM Utah, Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, Zion National Park, and the North American Non-Lead Partnership. And we are so grateful to have all those partners because we could not do the California Condor restoration and conservation projects that we do without this team of people. It takes everybody to make sure that these birds are out there flying safe and reproducing and making sure that the population is sustainable for future generations. We also have a couple of sponsors this year. We're super grateful to Traeger Grills and Swarovski Optics for helping us out and making sure that this event is a success. This is just our second year to do a live stream event, and it's pretty awesome that we have a couple sponsors that have put their support behind us. We do also have t-shirts for sale again this year. They are on Custom Ink, and they were designed by two of my friends, Fox Feathers and Kova, and Anastasia Korochenskaya. And they're part of Foxloft Vulture Conservancy, and you can check out their work at vultureconservancy.org. And also more of their artwork on Foxloft Studios if you go to that website. And so we hope that you'll consider buying one of these awesome t-shirts, not only to commemorate and celebrate today's event, but also to help support the California Condor Project. The money that's raised will help us to do the work that we do day in and day out to make sure that these birds are flying around safely. We do also have a donation link. If you go to the Peregrine Fund's website, you can make a donation to help support these condors. You can also become a member, and our members are the reason why we're able to conserve birds of prey all over the world year-round. So we would love to have more people join us, join our flock. We need as many people in our flock as possible. I did want to give out a quick shout out to a guy I met in Salt Lake City last week. He is a youngster that was at an education program that I went to. His name is Ray, and it is today is Ray's birthday. So happy birthday, Ray. I promised him that I'd give him a quick shout out, and we're super happy for you, Ray, because what could be better than condors being released to the wild on your birthday? I can't think of anything better. So very quickly, I'd like to introduce you to Tim Hawk. He is our condor manager in Arizona, and he is joining us live from the top of the Vermilion Cliff. And so check it out. Here's Tim. Hi, Tim. I'm good. How are you? That's fantastic. That's amazing. So, I did want to follow up with you about last year's Condors. A lot of the people who are online right now were part of the group last year that watched as we released 4 of our Condors to the wild. Can you give us a quick update on how they're doing?
of how wild these birds are when we release them. That bird flew 60, 80 miles down to the South Rim and back in only a couple weeks. And in the early days of the program, it would take months for a bird to do that. But the population here has developed so well, and the hierarchy in the flock and the mentors for these young birds are excellent, and they're picking it up real quick. All 4 of them have spent the entire summer up in Utah. So I think that's really cool to mention that Utah houses our birds. They take most of our birds in the summertime as the livestock is brought up on the mountains there. And these young birds are already feeding really well on their own in the wild on a lot of domestic stock and deer and elk that they're scavenging on up in the mountains of southern Utah. So all of them are doing well, healthy, and being their best condor selves. Well, yeah, we have been preparing for actually since last year, right? So we started planning right after last year's release, and we said, how can we make this better for everybody? How can we improve this and also be successful at releasing birds into the wild? And I think that I'm really excited for what we get to bring to the public today, and it's going to be amazing. I hope that you enjoy it. But on our end, it's involved transferring birds from the captive breeding facilities up at the Oregon Zoo and the World Center for Birds of Prey at our facilities, and driving them down over a 12-hour drive, straight shot, right down to Arizona and right up on top of the Vermilion Cliffs just a few weeks ago, so they could acclimate to this new beautiful environment and get used to their new surroundings in a pen. And then just about 10 days ago, we moved those birds to one of the pens that you will see in this broadcast where they're housed now. And we attach tags and we attach transmitters so that we can track the birds and identify them in the wild. We also drew blood for health checkups, and they're ready to go. They're excited, and they're bouncing around this pen, and they're looking forward to us opening those doors and those birds seeing their first taste of the wild. So we'll see what happens. As you know, it's fairly unpredictable. We do not know when these birds are going to leave, and we're not going to push them out. It's called a soft release. So we're going to let those birds take their time. As soon as we open the doors, they may fly out immediately, or they may take an hour. They tend to be a little bit timid. As soon as they get that taste of freedom and the door opens, they sometimes back off a little bit and go, wow, this is big. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for whatever happens.
Yeah, it's hard to blame them. It's a little intimidating to take that first leap off the cliff, I would imagine. And I know that last year they came out pretty quickly, pretty one after the next. But yeah, we don't know what'll happen this year. So we'll wait and see. We're going to be releasing the birds at 1 o'clock Mountain Time, which is 2 o'clock your time. Is that right, Ted?
The other way.
That's noon. Noon your time. Noon Condor time. So any of you who are joining us from Arizona, it'll be New Year time. If you're here in Idaho, 1 o'clock our time. If you're on the East Coast, 3 o'clock our time. So we've got about 15 minutes before it's time to let these birds go, which is really exciting. So you mentioned a little bit about how these birds came from Boise, the World Center for Birds of Prey, which is where I am right now, and from the Oregon Zoo. What are they doing there?
Well, they've got a captive population of adult breeders that are producing young so that our field teams can reintroduce them to the wild. So we release these captive raised birds from the captive breeding facilities, and there are more besides those two. We'll also be getting birds from the San Diego Zoo. The LA Zoo produces birds as well. So these birds get distributed. And we get the joy, the thrill of releasing them into the wild after they've spent a year and a half raising these birds from just an egg, just a beautiful little egg, watching those birds hatch out, and they get to monitor that whole process. It's very hands-off, but it is closely monitored so that we can ensure the survival of each individual bird, because they are so important to us. There are so few in the world still.
Yeah, and I imagine it's quite a process to raise a baby condor. And I know that we have some pretty awesome footage of that happening. Our engagement coordinator, Matt Danahel, has been working hard behind the scenes to give everybody a look at the day in the life of a propagation staff person here at the World Center for Birds of Prey. So I'm going to go ahead and have Matt cue up that video so that all of our viewers today can see what it's like to raise condors.
Boise, Idaho. When most people think of it, they think of three things: potatoes, and you know what? That's pretty much it. But Boise has a secret: the largest flock of California condors in human care anywhere in the world. I wanted to find out more, and so, before the coffee is working the clock, I've met with the team that cares for these birds day in and day out to see what it takes to save an endangered species. Step one, apparently, breakfast.
Today we're going to feed some rats to our chicks. Condors don't need to eat every day, so we fast the adults 3 times a week, but the chicks eat every day. We feed them all kinds of whole prey, so bunnies, rats, guinea pigs. We also have like beef chub, mixed meat, horse meat, and the calves.
Is mixed meat. That sounds like what Taco Bell serves.
Yeah.
Taco Bell doesn't donate money to us, do they?
They don't.
Okay.
They love bunnies. Bunnies is like their ultimate favorite thing.
I mean, I love bunnies too, but in a different way, I think.
So we feed everybody in the trap. It's like an area at the end of their enclosure that we can close down, and so we feed them there every day. They go in there to eat, and when we have to trap them, they're just used to going in there, so we just shut them.
Easy enough.
Right, that's what we call the trap. They don't know that.
Before the day continues any further, I've noticed a ritual I need to ask about.
So, why do you step in a giant bowl of milk every time you go in? Do you have a cat that you don't like very much?
Yeah, we should eat that. No, it's just very strong chemicals. It's because of biosecurity. We just want to make sure we're not introducing anything into our barns. And if there's anything in one barn, so it doesn't get into the other one.
My curiosity satiated, I leave Carolina to do the dishes, wheelbarrow,
Hope you don't get me missing a spot.
and head across the complex to see a very different kind of condor work: outreach.
Obviously, raising these condors contributes directly to their conservation, but this is a whole nother way we can reach people as well.
So this is what an embryo looks like.
I always like to share my personal experiences in working with these condors, because that's not something that you can get online or in a book. To actually talk to someone who works with these animals every day and has all these unique experiences.
So we'll let them incubate for the first 14 days, because we've figured out that produces the most successful hatching egg. And then we'll switch it out with a dummy egg. We'll incubate the real egg in the lab so we can keep track of the progress. And then once that egg starts hatching, we'll switch it back out for the dummy egg. And they're really good at hatching their eggs.
Oh, wow.
People are going to remember that. Then they're going to go out and they're going to tell their friends about condors. And when you get talking about condors, you can talk about how to save those condors.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's fun. Yeah.
Back in condor country, I'm about to discover that not all of the propagation team
Hello, everyone.
have only 2 legs.
So I can't help but notice that these are not condors.
Yeah, so the goats are here to basically keep everything within this quadrant trimmed down nice and short, so that we don't have to bring mowers in here and mow around the condors. When you're breeding birds for release into the wild, you really don't want them to be used to human interaction. You don't want them to see us feeding or messing with their waters. That's it. There's nothing else in there.
Not with that attitude.
We don't want them used to human voices, so we're very quiet back there. We don't want them used to just regular human noises like cars. It keeps the birds nice and wild, so when they do go out for release, they're not attracted to human activity and campgrounds and things like that. So this keeps them nice and wild.
It's an inventive solution, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely works well for us.
And for the goats. By this point, I thought I'd met all of the hairy team members, but there was one more to go.
So this is Bunny. She gets rid of all the mice in the office.
She's missed a couple. I'll show myself out.
She actually was found in a condor pen when she was a kitten. She's been here ever since.
Unfortunately, I was unable to confirm rumors that they also have a rabbit named Cat. It's now the afternoon, and the team readies to move 2 condors to a new barn. But, like any move, there are some last-minute hiccups.
There was a ton of sediment in the hose, and it made it clog. Because we just have it coming out of a tiny little hole of the stream to overfill the water so that we don't have to go out there all the time.
Is this an existing system that you purchased, or did you invent this on your own?
We invented it. Yeah, we just buy different parts from Lowe's and put it all together to get it to do what we want.
High stakes Legos.
Yeah. Always something to fix. Something to figure out.
While Leah and Carolina are working hard, there's another team member sitting around watching TV. But it's not what you think.
Breeding season, we spend hours and hours watching these birds. In the summer, we'll spend more time on projects around the facility, but we will always do wellness checks 3 times a day. At this time of year, it's mostly chick developmental stages. So like for instance, over here, I've got a chick that's jumping all around on the ledge and flapping its wings. And that is a chick that is getting very close to fledging. It's actually when you're like really busy and working on projects for a long time, it's nice to have a day where you can actually just watch your birds, because you'll definitely feel like, oh man, I don't really know what's going on. I need to spend some time watching everybody. 'Cause these birds, you know, they all have very individual little idiosyncrasies. So we do our jobs better when we understand the birds as individuals.
Okay, I get it, it's important. But it's still boring to watch. I'm going back to the fun people.
So we're going to vaccinate one of our nestlings today. This is 1109. We are vaccinating for the West Nile virus. It's a virus that spreads through mosquito bites. It's somewhat common, and we had a really bad outbreak in 2006. And so ever since then, we're just making sure we always vaccinate all of our condors. We try to do everything without the adults knowing what we're doing. So one of the staff members is going to go up onto the ledge, distract the parents, and while he's up there, me and Carolina can sneak in, place the blanket over the chick, and Carolina will hold the chick still very gently while I just poke the leg real quick, and then we'll just sneak right back out. So the whole process, doing the vaccine, just takes a few seconds, like less than 30 seconds, I'd say.
So that went well.
Yeah, that went really well. Chicks stayed nice and calm. The adults were pretty calm. So we'll run into the observation room right now. And we'll just pull him up on the camera, and that way we can keep a close eye on the chick. Looks like he's doing pretty good. We'll just keep a really close eye on him and see how the parents react when they come back, and document everything and make sure everyone's good.
So much for getting away from the screens. It's now the late afternoon, but there's still one big item left on today's to-do list.
We're headed to our new barn, Condor Barn 4. It was started 2 years ago now. And we finally actually finished the final touches just this past summer. We're bringing 2 birds number 1020 and 1032. They're going to be the first birds put into this barn.
With the cost of housing in Boise, they probably have the cheapest place in the city. The team settles in to keep tabs on these birds as they settle into their new home, and it's time for me to call it a night. It's been an amazing day for me, but for this team, it's just another Tuesday. The hard work and dedication I've seen on display here today is nothing short of remarkable, and it's plain to see that these birds are in very good hands. And pause. And hooves.
All right. Well, the range of a condor varies from day to day, but generally the range of this population, and we'll start there, is from the south rim of the Grand Canyon, just that way. So south rim of the Grand Canyon, all the way north to just north of Zion National Park, which is right up here. And west out into the Grand Canyons, all the way over to Lake Mead at some points, and east over to Lake Powell. So the range is fairly large. A condor can easily fly 100 miles in a day, cruising at 50 miles an hour in a good wind. And they can move. With 9.5-foot wingspan, these birds can move and cover quite a bit of distance. Yeah, today is National Public Lands Day. So we're here. I'm standing on our public lands, and this is something really worth celebrating. It's very worthy because without public lands, it would be more difficult to do something as amazing as this. So we're going to commemorate that with a condor release. And this is all managed by the BLM, which I think is very worthy to note because they're a fantastic partner of ours. And their land houses our land technically because it's public land, but they're administering it, and it houses all our facilities here for the Condor Release Program, and it has since the beginning of the program in 1996. So we're very lucky to have a partnership and be able to celebrate our public lands on this beautiful day.
Hello, I'm Lorraine Christian, Field Manager for the Bureau of Land Management's Arizona Strip Field Office and Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. On behalf of the BLM, I'd like to welcome each of you to the 26th Annual California Condor Release. Whether you are with us in person in House Rock Valley or watching from the comfort of your home, we welcome you to share with us the excitement of watching as 5 young condors take their first flight above the spectacular Vermilion Cliffs. I would like to thank all who helped make this amazing program so successful, including the Peregrine Fund, the BLM's Vermilion Cliffs National Monument, Arizona Game and Fish Department, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Grand Canyon and Zion National Parks, Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, and NCIBEB and Dixie National Forest, plus many other supporting groups and individuals. We are especially thankful to you, the public, for your great support and enthusiasm, and we are truly thankful for all the work done by our partner, the Peregrine Fund. It is my belief that the Condor Recovery Program will continue to succeed because of all of you. The enormous support and input of time and energy is what makes this program the success that it is. And with that, I hope you enjoy the 26th Annual California Condor release.
Yeah, sorry guys. Erin's having some technical difficulties with her audio there in Boise. Here in Vermilion Cliffs, in the middle of nowhere, we're doing great. So I will do my best to keep talking when needed. Oh man, yeah, I'd be very honored to. This next piece that one of our guys, Matt Danahill, who is helping out in running this event today. So thank you to Matt. He came down and he helped tell the story of what a biologist, a condor biologist specifically, does in a typical day. And there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of intricacies and a lot of importance to it that we would like to share with you guys. And I think the video will tell most of it. So I'll just let the video explain.
Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. Yes, it's spelled with only one L. That confused me too. Located just under 50 miles north of the Grand Canyon, this remote area doesn't seem like it'd be the hotspot for anything, but that's just what it is. This gorgeous natural area is ground zero for the California Condor recovery efforts in Arizona and Utah. One would be very lucky to get to spend a day here and see the recovery efforts in action. And in a related story, I am a very lucky man. It's early morning, and the Peregrine Fund's California Condor field team is scattered all over the region with one goal in mind: find condors. And that is a goal I can get behind.
A little more crooked than mine.
He was cooking marshmallows on it last night.
I was. Hot dogs and marshmallows.
All the ones that we're monitoring have transmitters, and some of the birds have GPS, some do not.
So you have to go through every single bird.
Every single bird has a transmitter, so I'm going through every bird's frequency.
Okay.
So that ping is a bird?
Yep. The Yagi picks up directional signals, so you might be able to hear the beep, but when you point the Yagi in the correct direction, it'll narrow in on where they actually are.
When you're really close to the birds, you can get their signal without even having the antenna attached to it.
She's soaring. The Yagi remains stationary, but you can hear how her signal gets softer and louder. So that means the transmitter's turning towards and away.
The main thing I've noticed, the longer that I work here, predicting their behavior is a lot easier, and you can use the information that you already know about the bird to determine what they are currently doing. The more familiar you get with the birds, the more you're like, oh yeah, like they're home. That makes sense.
It's good for the rotator cuffs. At least the one.
It's been a productive morning so far, but unfortunately an approaching storm is threatening to put an early end to the morning's telemetry work.
Might be a little less rainy.
We want to go down into the burn area.
South. There's that spot right by the cistern.
Hopefully this just passes over quick and we'll be fine.
It didn't. With conditions not exactly ideal for field work, thankfully there's some project-sanctioned arts and crafts that can be done instead.
We're preparing tags, vinyl wing tags, for the newest birds to come into the wild population in Arizona and Utah. 2 tags per bird, 1 for each wing. We'll paint the same ID on each tag. So that's the next step, is to stencil out the number and or letter combination, and then finally we'll apply the paint and let it dry before applying on the birds.
3 tags down. I don't feel like doing the math to go. While the paint dries, there's more work to be done, courtesy of some broken telemetry equipment.
Yeah, last week I spent a couple hours doing some checks with the Omni and wasn't getting anything. I was really confused about it, and near like the release site or at the bridge, you pretty much always expect to get a bird. After like 3 or 4 checks in a row with no contact, it kind of started to get suspect. I was able to troubleshoot it down to a bed coax, but simple quick fix.
Immediately afterwards, Jeremy was sent to the secondary field site in Utah.
Thank you, yeah.
This was unrelated, I am told. The rain is finally stopping down in town, and so we pile into the truck and head for the field site.
That looks fun. Yeah, that's dark.
And run right back into the rain.
Any chance we're going that way?
No.
We're headed
Find the dark spot. Let's go there.
So if we see any cows flying across the road,
yeah.
But as the hour-long drive to the top of the plateau continues, the rain clears, and we even get a rainbow for our troubles. And at the release site, things continue to look up.
We are at our trapping site inside of Room Blind at Vermilion Cliffs. We put out some carcasses for our wild birds. We just like to have them conditioned to come to the trap. That way, if they're sick or if we need to, take them in for something, they're not going to be scared of the trap. They're going to come to us. It makes it a lot easier than chasing a bird around. Most of what I'm doing right now is just seeing who's here and making sure that there's nothing, no strange behaviors, nothing that seems a little off, and making sure that all of their tags and call radios and GPS units are working.
Gotcha. So who's here today?
Oh, we got 193, Bird 1000 was here, 610, let's see, 844 is down there now. We kind of got a good day from what I've seen.
All may be looking good at the blind, but over at the flight pen, not so much.
Some rats have been chewing on the wires that electrified our mimic power pole.
Basically electric fencing that runs on at low voltage just to scare the birds away from it, so hopefully when they're free flying they won't land on an actual power pole and get electrocuted.
Hopefully there's enough reach. Yeah.
There we go. Now we're in business. Who wants to go touch it?
Not it.
Okay.
Alex.
I'll just do some pull-ups.
Alex never did those pull-ups. Come on, Alex. Not cool, bro.
Yeah.
It's now dusk on the Pariah Plateau, which means it's time for a highly nutritious dinner before we head off on our final task of the night.
What is this building used for?
This is our cabin. We stay out here when we are doing carcass drops on the rim and for the flight pen. And we stay out here in the winter for longer periods of time, 3 to 4 days, when we're trapping. So when we're grabbing the condors to do health checks and test them for lead poisoning. Okay.
Ooh, fundraising idea. Put it on Airbnb, call it Rustic, and watch the hipsters from Portland fight over it. Night has fallen now, which means it's time for us to get back to work, delivering food and water to the Clifftop flight pen. But tonight has a few more surprises in store for us.
I got a flat tire. A really low one anyway.
Oh yeah? You want me to grab it?
I mean,
it's not too bad, but
it is with Matt sitting on it.
Oh, for sure. That makes sense.
Calling me fat?
I don't know if I want to deal with it, but... Oh, take the rat nest out.
I know, I just pulled that out too.
Oh
my
get out
God.
of here. You're a chipmunk.
Why?
You are not a rat. You're sweet and adorable.
Come on, bud. Go ahead. Go on.
Aw, little buddy. You can drive? Oh, there he goes. Okay.
Squatter evicted, it's time to fix the original problem, the flat tire. And with the tire repaired, it's back to plan A for the evening. delivering water and condor food to the field site. And with that, the evening and my time with the Condor field team draws to a close. Sierra heads to bed, Tim heads down the mountain, and I start on a long journey home. But while you can leave this place doesn't leave you. The scenic vistas, spectacular birds, and the indomitable determination of those who protect them live in memory forever. Here's hoping that the condors live in Vermilion Cliffs for just as long.
All right, I hope everybody enjoyed the little look into our life as biologists. It's not something everybody gets to see, so we're really excited to get to share that with you, along with the release of 5 condors into the wild. So you guys may notice that there are some birds outside of the pen. There are 5 inside. Those birds have black heads. They're juveniles. They're young birds at about 1.5 years old. So you will see some birds outside the pen that may have red heads. Those are adults, and they don't get that red head until about 5 years of age. So there is a difference between some of the wild population hanging out outside the pen and the birds inside the pen. And you may hear me using this guy right here. This is a radio that I'm going to use to communicate to the biologist in the pen that's going to open the doors for those birds to leave. And then I'll also be able to communicate with all the folks down below the Vermilion Cliffs that are watching from below with spotting scopes, including the biologists and all the public that decided to come join us today in this event. Yeah, I think we are. I think we're right about there. Like I said, we don't know when the birds are going to leave, but we will radio down to the biologist in the blind, and we'll have her, Erin, open the door. And I will also communicate that with the folks down below, and we'll all get ready, and we're looking to see what these birds are going to do. And if they fly right away, we have scopes down below where they can spot each individual, and they're going to monitor that bird for the rest of the day. So each biologist will get assigned a bird, and that becomes their responsibility.
Okay.
But yeah, we're excited to see what happens here. This is going to be great.
That's super exciting. I do think, Matt, did we have one other video, a quick one, introducing the birds? Did you want to do that real quick? It's like 1 minute long. Okay. We're going to intro the birds real quick then, too.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, sports fans, it's time to meet the 5 condors that we'll be releasing today. Up first, it's Z1, or Z1 for our British and Canadian viewers who are wrong. A female with the stud book number 1012. This means she was the 1012th bird born in the history of the recovery program. Her favorite color is blue, and she's addicted to BuzzFeed quizzes. Coming up next, it's Z7. Another female, Z7 has the youngest parents of any bird in this group. Larger stud book numbers mean younger birds. Z7 wants to start her own travel blog, and she once rickrolled our vice president during a board meeting. Next up, it's Z8, one of 2 birds being released today that was born right here at the World Center for Birds of Prey. She's a big fan of chocolate chip cheesecake, and she's currently the number 73 ranked Tetris player in the world.
We're going to get better at
Next up, it's a combo breaker. Look close, that's not Z5, that's 2-5. The final bird today that was born at the Oregon Zoo, she and every condor from Oregon Zoo was brought to the World Center for Birds of Prey following the Portland wildfires in 2020. 2-5 is currently selling 2 scalped PS5s on eBay, and she once got thrown out of a Starbucks for biting the barista when they ran out of soy milk. And finally, it's Z4, the youngest bird being released today by over a month. And if you're following along at home, yes, all 5 birds being released today are females. Z4 is a moderator on the Wall Street Bet subreddit, and she was the one that let the dogs out. And there you have it, the 5 California condors that are about to take to the skies over Arizona. Back to you, Aaron.
All right, so we're back. And it is time to go ahead and release the birds, which is really exciting. We have 2 different camera views, one that's going to look at the entire pen. And then we also this year have a GoPro that Tim snuck into the enclosure, into the release pen. And so you're going to be able to see the birds as they exit through the door. So I think we are ready, Tim, whenever you guys are, to open that door and see what happens.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to communicate with the biologist down below, and I'm going to give her the okay to open the doors, and the magic will hopefully happen, or we're going to wait until it does. So we'll just have to see. It's always fun to see what happens from year to year, because it's been real quick and it's taken a long time. So
yeah,
what will this year bring? All right, I'm going to get on the radio,
okay,
and I'm going to give these the cue to open up the doors. Aaron, do you copy?
Go ahead.
All right, the world is ready to see the doors open on the pen, and you have the go-ahead. Let's open them up.
Copy. Top first, then bottom.
Copy. Top first, then bottom. Congratulations, guys.
So is the door open, Tim?
It is in the process of opening as we speak. There are 2 doors, one on the top, one on the bottom. And Aaron is opening one at a time, but they will both be open. And you'll start to see that happen in the feed here shortly.
It looks like all the adults are moving around, maybe moving away from the doors.
Yep, it's probably startled them.
Yeah. All the birds on top of the cage. Oh. There, all the birds on the inside are getting down. Looks like they're thinking very hard about this.
This is a big decision. This is one of those pivotal life decisions that they have to make, right? Do I leave the comfort and safety of my pen, enjoy the wild flock, or do I stay here and wait it out a little bit longer?
So speaking of that, Tim, how did we get to the point where we needed to start breeding and reintroducing California condors to the wild?
Well, we noticed that the population was declining back in the. Oh, I've got radio traffic, so we're just try to minimize that while this is going on. But yeah, we noticed a steep decline in the presence of the condor back in the middle part of the 1900s, and by the 1970s, we had noticed that the population was seriously declining. Are they getting ready?
It looks like it.
Tell me. You can interrupt me at any time, but when we the only 22 birds left in the world, that was our low point. They brought all those birds back into captivity to start that captive breeding program, and that was going to be necessary to repopulate the species. So that was a monumental effort by a whole lot of people, a whole lot of dedicated biologists, to start that captive breeding program and to develop techniques with a species that we had not worked with before in captive breeding settings. So they did a phenomenal job of using a double clutching method, which they developed for condors, where they could remove one of the eggs from a captive breeding pair, and the female would recycle and lay a second egg. So you just doubled your production for a bird that lays one egg, a single egg in a breeding season, and every other year in a perfect situation. So breeding super slow reproductive rates for condors, and that obviously worked against them. As far as their numbers, they're not able to repopulate that quickly. But with the help of people and propagation, boom, we were in business.
That's great. So, Tim, we have a question from the chat. Is there any way to know if any of the adults that are on top of the pen or flying around are parents of any of the juveniles being released?
They are not. So the parents, did we have one leave? Oh, they're getting closer. I will keep answering the question. One is getting closer to that door, which is a great step. No, these birds' parents are all in captive breeding programs. So none of the birds on the outside of the pen are related to these birds that are being released today.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. I'm really glad we have the view from inside the pen on the GoPro, because the larger view wasn't working there for a moment. One of the tough things about this being in a remote location is that sometimes the internet is spotty, but it does look like we have the pen view back, so that's good.
Great. I can see them sitting on that perch, and that perch is right below what we call the top door that opens from the top of the pen. And so all they have to
one
do
just
is
went
take
out.
one. Did you get one out?
One's on the top perch, or like outside on the top.
Was that an outside bird? It looked like it came
So it
from the
is that-
perch.
Yep. Yep, it's one of the first birds. I haven't heard the number yet, but it's one of the first birds to jump up, and it's outside the pen technically, and on the perch that's on the top of the pen.
Okay. That's what it looks like. That's so cool. Well, let us know once you have the number, because Matt...
Z1.
It's what?
Z1.
Z1. Okay. Z1 has flown the coop.
So Z1 is actually Condor 1012, so that's its full stud book number. Z1 is the identifier that we give it on the tag. So Condor 1012, if you will, is the first.
So
hasn't taken that flight yet.
Not quite.
That's going to be really watch.
He's still trying to figure out what's going on. Oh, there he is. He turned around. So we got a question from the chat. Why are the adults surrounding the pen?
Well, they're social birds. That's one of the cool things about condors and vultures. They're very social, and there's a hierarchy, and they're curious birds as well. Think of a raven or another species like that. And these condors are checking out these young birds who are about to enter the population. And they're, to some degree, they're saying, just so you guys know, I'm the dominant bird. I'm the older bird. I've been in the wild a little bit longer than you have. So make sure you check yourself a little bit. And there is that hierarchy within the population. So they will get put in their place a little bit in the next few weeks. But once they gain that acceptance with the flock, they do really well. So this first day will be challenging for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
The more dominant the bird, the better your chances are of gaining a mate. So that is why that dominance is important.
That makes sense. So Carrie asks, how much opportunity have they had to fly, and how did they learn?
Well, in reality, they haven't taken their first full flight yet. So you're about to see their first flight. They are currently been in an aviary that is about 60 feet long, 65 feet long. And so they have an opportunity to take really short flights from perch to perch. You may have seen that pen in the video for the day in the life of the biologist. And so they've had a chance to stretch those wings, exercise the muscles, but they haven't taken a full flight yet.
And the condors, when they do fly, they don't spend a lot of time flapping, right?
They do not. 9.5 foot wingspans, really, really large, broad wings. They catch the winds and the updrafts and the thermals, and they take right off. They don't need to flap hardly all day.
So here's a question, Tim. So these guys are just getting out into the wild for their very first time. How do you make sure that they're getting enough food to eat?
Well, you will probably see at some point on some of the rocks, we have placed some carcasses out there, and they're calf carcasses, stillborns from some dairies that we are able to pick up. They're donated to us, and we go out under the cover of darkness, and we place these carcasses on some strategic rocks outside the pen, and those birds will have an opportunity to go to those carcasses. The wild population has been feeding on them all morning. We've been watching this. And really, this is a great management tool for us to provide food. The wild population, they don't need this food. But these young birds, for the first few weeks, they're going to need it just to get that, get to the point where they feel comfortable feeding with the rest of the population. And before you know it, like that bird last year, 2 weeks later, they'll be out foraging and scavenging on their own.
That's amazing. It's amazing that they are able to pick it up so quickly. How to be a wild condor.
Yeah, turns out they're actually just wild condors.
So cool. So Z1 is now exploring the roof of his pen.
I'm seeing this. This is cool. This is a very controlled situation for this bird. It did a really nice job of just leaving the pen, and now it's curious and checking out its surroundings. And sometimes they leave the pen and they catch that breeze, and they just kind of, this is new. They freak out a little bit, and they catch the wind and they soar, and they'll get 1,000 feet up, and we'll be trying to watch these little dots in the sky as they take that first flight, which might be a really big one. So I would imagine a couple of these others might have that situation. But this bird is on the pen, and it's starting to socialize with some other birds, and I think, it's doing really well. There's food not far from this bird, about 50 feet on the south side of this pen. So there is a carcass there that this bird could go to and start feeding.
Oh, cool. So we just found out that Theodore Roosevelt National Park is here cheering on the condors. They're watching with us today. So thanks, Theodore Roosevelt. So cool. So we have a question. Do the birds have satellite tracking equipment attached to them?
It's a really good question. The birds, since we do track them on an individual basis, do have tracking devices. Most of the birds, these 5 in particular, have VHF radio transmitters. So we can pick them up using our radio telemetry equipment. It's a receiver and an antenna, and we can track the birds directionally with that. We do have a group of birds, a subset of the population, that have GPS satellite trackers on them, which is also really cool because I can just sit at my desk, log into Google Earth, and find out exactly where these birds have been, where they're going. But that's about a third of the population probably has the GPS units, and all of the birds have radio units.
So I see Andy, our camera operator, and also Condor biologist, just panned down so we could see some of the carcasses on the cliff. So that was kind of cool to see some of those adults feeding on it.
Yeah.
Did Z1 take off? It looks like, oh, no, there he is. He's down behind. He's exploring the roof on other
wonderful
parts. Yeah.
Well, it's good encouragement for the other 4 to go out and explore as well. So generally it can take a little while for the first bird to make a move, but it does encourage the others sometimes. So we'll hope that they get the courage to go out as well, because they're close. How many are sitting on that center perch right there?
I see 3 through the GoPro. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's so different from last year. Last year they were all out pretty quickly, and this year they're being a little more cautious. This is only the second time I've seen a condor release. Last year was the first time, so this is exciting to get to see the difference.
Yeah, today's the fun part. Watching these birds leave for the first time and fly in the wild. Tons of fun for us and a great celebration. But really, after this all takes place, that's when the hard work begins. Mm-hmm. And so the biologists are going to be tracking these birds and just keeping an eye on them, because the birds, these young condors, they do have threats in the wild. Because they are first-timers here in the Vermilion Cliffs, they don't understand that there are predators out there. And one of their main predators is actually a coyote. So coyotes account for a significant majority of the predations that we have seen over time in condors. And generally, when that happens, it's a young bird. An inexperienced condor would get taken by a coyote. And the reason that would happen is because it roosted in a poor location, like not on the cliff face. If it roosted on the ground in the valley, that would be a very unsafe place. And so part of the job of the biologist down below is to track these birds and monitor their movements and just make sure that they're not going to slip up and go down to the valley floor or get into a place where a coyote or a ground predator could be able to access that bird. So that's what we're going to be doing out here for the next few weeks, is monitoring that, as well as making sure that they're getting enough food and staying healthy.
That's amazing. So we just got a message that the rangers at Zion National Park are cheering us on, and Zion has had a lot of condor activity this year. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Tim?
Yeah, Zion is striking it rich with condor right now. It's wonderful to see the birds up in Utah and to see them breeding in Zion National Park. We started back in 2003 in Grand Canyon National Park is where the first wild nest successfully hatched since the recovery program started. And that was a huge milestone for the program. And then fast forward to this year, we've got their third hatch in Zion National Park. A couple years ago, you guys might remember 1K, Condor 1000. That bird is doing great and is actually here feeding at the release site today. We've seen that bird multiple times, so you might see it on the feed. And now they have another chick in the same nest. So that's Condor 1111, 1111. So they've had great success, and we're hoping that Condor 1111 is falls right in line with that and does great in the wild as far as foraging and independence. Their birds have done really well with being successful. So
that is so
congrats
cool.
to Zion. And
yeah. So Karen asks, do some of the birds that are released here end up at Navajo Bridge?
Absolutely. If you're ever coming through our area, please stop at the Navajo Bridge. It is by far and away one of the best places in North America, probably, to see condors. They're close. They're very close. You can take pictures of them. They're perched below the bridge structure. It's a great perch for them right over the Colorado River, which is a beautiful backdrop for condors. Great winds. There's not a lot of food there, but it's kind of like a hangout spot. Like I said, condors are social. So they're going to gather and hang out together, and that's one of the places they do that. I've had condors fly 5 feet over the top of my head there, so
wow.
It's breathtaking. So yeah, the sound and the feeling of a condor flying directly over your head is unlike nothing you'll ever experience. So please stop at the Navajo Bridge and check it out.
That sounds incredible. I just got goosebumps. That
I
would be
did
amazing to see. Carrie asks, do they find their food by sight or smell?
Condors are actually better at finding their food by sight. So they have really good eyesight, whereas turkey vultures have better sense of smell. So condors, being a bigger species with more tearing power in their beaks, they can really rip apart a carcass. So a raven and a turkey vulture might start on a carcass, and they're going to get into the easily accessible places. But a condor is going to be soaring high above that landscape, and they're going to see that turkey vulture and raven activity, and they're going to come down and they're going to be able to rip into places on that carcass that the other birds couldn't get into and really open it up. So they're usually the second one to the carcass, but they're dominant when they get there.
Gotcha. So does Andrea asks, back to the coyotes, is there any way that you can train the birds to be afraid of the coyotes?
We've tried that in the past, introducing a leashed dog into our aviaries to see how they reacted and to try to create a training module that would address that. But ultimately, we didn't see a whole lot of success there, and it was more trouble than it was worth. So we are those people. We are the condor mentors out there. These birds, you have to remember, they don't have parents in the wild. Like a wild hatch chick, is being raised up in Zion, it has two parents. It has a mom and a dad, or a sire and a dam, as you might have seen in the introductions. And those parents are able to show that bird where to roost, where to perch, where to feed. And those birds learn really quickly. A captive raised bird doesn't have all of that information yet. Although it has it innately, it can figure it out really quickly because it does have that programming. But it takes a few weeks, like I said. And so we're just there as a backup. We're trying to not interfere at all unless we absolutely have to. So we just want to ensure the highest possible success for condors in the wild.
That makes sense. And when you have a youngster that's hatched in the wild, like at Zion, do you guys ever put a tag on it or a transmitter? Do you trap them to do that?
Yeah, eventually we will. We won't go out and try to get that bird specifically in the natal area where it fledged from, but we will here at the pen that you're looking at. This is great. I get to explain this to you guys. The pen that you're looking at doubles as a trapping pen as well. So today it's a release pen, but in a few months it can be a trapping pen where we can bait that pen with food and we can get the birds in the wild population to come in and then shut those doors so that we can safely handle them and replace some of those transmitters do some health checkups, and get tags on some of those wild hatched young. So it may take 6 months to a year for that bird to follow its parents back here to this release site, but when it does, we'll be ready.
That's great. Yeah, I do want to make another quick advertisement for our t-shirt. We have a really cool Condor release shirt this year that was designed by my friends Fox Feathers and Kova and Anastasia Korochinskaya, who I know are both on here. I've seen them on the chat. So if you go to our t-shirt site on Custom Ink, and I think Dan here is putting the link in the chat. He's working on it. Then you will be able to get your very own custom Condor release t-shirt for this year. It's only available for limited time, so if you want one, I recommend getting it soon. And the funds from that shirt will go to help save condors in the wild. So thank you in advance for that. So, Tim, we just got a question from Colleen asking if the condors in California were in danger from the fires.
The fires from this year, or the fires? I mean, they did have a fire last year that was definitely harmful to condors, and it was a really bad fire, and it killed several condors. The fires this year, as far as I know from my communications with the other field teams, have not been impacting too much. I don't think they've had any mortalities from those fires at any rate. But I'm speaking for programs that I'm not directly involved in, so I could be off there. But that's, to my knowledge, I don't think they've lost any birds this year.
That's great. That's great. So Jeff Graham asks, what does a condor smell like?
Well, Jeff Graham would know, because Jeff has held condors for us in the past. He's a former crew member of ours who's now off in grad school. They don't actually smell bad at all. So for an animal that often has its head inside of dead animals, they're really quite clean, and their heads smell like condor. It's kind of like a baby smell. You know, babies have a very distinctive smell. Condors have a similar distinctive smell like that. So they smell good to me. It's nostalgic, I guess, but condor biologists are kind of weird like that.
Honestly, I tell everybody that vulture is one of my favorite smells. Like, it sounds counterintuitive because of what they eat, but their feathers have this just amazing, I don't know, it just smells like the wild to me. It smells like freedom. You know, I love that. It's such a great smell. Owls also smell good, so things that you only get to know when you work with birds a lot. So Gabby asks, why do you open the top door first and then the bottom and not both at the same time?
Well, they're each operated by hand by the biologist, Erin, inside the blind. So she has to open one at a time because that's all she can manage at that juncture. But it wouldn't make a difference. We just want to get them both open, give them the best opportunity to get out of there.
That's great. Yeah. It looks like they're still deciding.
Yeah, it kind of looks like they're having a little powwow, doesn't it?
It does.
There's a really important conversation happening there right now, I can tell.
Yeah, trying to figure out whether or not it's worth it to take that leap. Have you ever had the birds end up staying in the pen for like overnight with the door open?
I've heard it before my time. I've been here for a long time, but not the entire time. So yeah, like I said, it's a soft release, so we could potentially close the doors up and give them a second try tomorrow. So that really very rarely happens. I'm pretty confident that these birds will leave at some point. Hopefully it's during a time when we're still able to keep this live stream going.
Yeah. Alyssa asks if that's N1 on top of the pen. It looks like it to me. N1.
I mean, confirmation from the biologist, but I believe it very well could be N1.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, this is a great time to plug condorspotter.com. Condorspotter.com
yes.
is a really cool website. I did get confirmation. Yes, it is N1. You can go to condorspotter.com and you can select any of the condor populations and you can get detailed information on those individual birds by either their tag number or their full stud book number. And this whole program was created by a really awesome guy named Tim Huntington, who is a volunteer with the Ventana Wildlife Society, who also does condor work, reintroductions, and monitoring over in Central California. And Tim has been integral in upgrading our technology to the 21st century and making life easier for us field folks. So thanks, Tim. Definitely a huge shout out to you for all the work you do, and check out condorspotter.com. It's super helpful for spotting birds in the field.
Yeah, it's awesome too, because if you're standing on Navajo Bridge and you see a condor and you can read its tag, you can go on condorspotter.com and find out where it hatched, who its parents were, all of that good stuff. So it makes it a lot of fun to see the birds in the wild.
Yeah.
So Wisconsin Johnny asks, will the heightened chance of rain affect their decision to leave or not in the coming days?
Well, today it's looking pretty clear. I know we have some chances of rain coming up here in the forecast, but if they leave today, that shouldn't be an issue. And actually, I would be very happy with a little bit of rain. We could use some rain here in the desert.
I bet.
Did it take off? Oh, nice. It looks like we have another bird that's getting close.
Oh, good. Thinking about it.
Oh.
Oh, yep.
I believe they're walking out the bottom.
It looks like so. I just saw one hop up. Oh, two hopped up. And there is a little delay, so we might be seeing this before everybody else. There one goes. Who is that? Is that Z4?
That is 4. Mm-hmm.
Z4.
Second bird.
And then somebody else, too. Z8. Yep.
All right, things are happening. They're making moves.
Z4 and Z8 have left the building.
And it looks like Z4 went over to where that carcass is. It's about 50 feet south of the release pen. So that could be really excellent for that bird to get a bite to eat.
Yeah. When was their last meal while they were in the pen?
It was about 3 days ago.
Okay.
So we feed the birds that are in that pen about every 4 days or so. They'll get a fresh cow. And then before that release, before today, we actually remove that carcass because we don't want them to have, any inclination to stay in the pen. So we want them to go outside and get food. So they did not have any food in that pen.
Yeah. Wow. So how many do we have left? Just one? Or two? Two, I guess. It looks like 25 and Z7.
There you go.
She's on the south side behind the 955 and the adult 701.
So that's just the crew talking back and forth on the radio, and they're communicating about which birds are in what positions now that a few have left.
Just landed on the peak just to the south.
Got her.
12 is just to the east of her.
So when Erin says that, she means 10-12.
Okay.
So that would be Z1.
Z1. Yeah. So what does the next few days look like for your team, for the biologists?
Yeah, we're going to be out here daily. So if you want to come by and say hello to us, you can come see us at the Condor viewing area. We'll all have our scopes set up. But we're going to be closely monitoring these birds, like I said, and just keeping an eye on their behaviors and making sure that they're acclimating to their environments correctly. Making sure that they're making good decisions and that they're flying well. If you ever watch one of these young releases take their first landing, it's not pretty. It's like a crash landing. I'm not going to lie. They've never had to do that kind of controlled landing before with that much speed. And so it takes them some time to learn how to pull up and slow down before they land. Oftentimes they just come in with a little too much speed. So we'll make sure that nobody has any injuries if there are some tough landings, but most of the time they pick that up. It's like 2 or 3 rough landings, and then they're kind of through that stage, and they really get the hang of it quick. So we'll be out all day just trying to monitor their behaviors, and then most important is that time about 2 hours before sundown. We really want to make sure that these birds roost in safe locations. And if they don't roost in safe locations, it is the biologist's job to, at that point, go up and hike up the cliff face. There are some routes that we can get up to and act like a ground predator. So if you haven't worked on your coyote calling, and you need to, because that's what we do out here if it gets to that point where the birds need a little bit. So that's just a little bit of conditioning, right? That tells that bird, the bird sees us, it sees us making a lot of really awful noises, and it flies away, and hopefully it goes to a better spot on the cliff face that's not visible to a coyote. But that's just a little bit of conditioning that we can provide so that they hopefully kind of clicks in their head and they go, I'm not supposed to be here.
Okay, so Tim, I want video of that for next year's release. I want to see you crawling around acting like a coyote.
We'll talk.
So Andrea asks, since there is a drought right now, do you put water out for the birds?
Yeah, we always provide a water tub down there while we provide the food as
well.
well.
Oh, sorry, so Z7 just left.
That's what I just heard. So Z7 is going to be your next bird out.
Sweet.
Let me see. But yeah, we do provide water, although they don't need a lot of water. They get a lot of their water from their food. So they can go a couple weeks easily without feeding or drinking. They do like to bathe, though, which is really fun to watch them go down into a creek and take a bath. Very, very common occurrence for condors out here in the Southwest.
That's awesome.
And they love water sources.
I feel like there's nothing cuter than a bird taking a bath.
No, it's adorable.
It is adorable. Speaking of adorable, Annika asks, do you have a favorite bird? A favorite condor?
Well, this is a trick question. You're not supposed to ask me that. I do kind of have a favorite bird. We try to we're biologists, we're scientists, we're trying to distance ourselves a little bit from that, because we do lose birds occasionally, and it's best to not get too attached or favor any particular bird. But of course I have a favorite bird. 441 is probably my favorite bird. So that's F1 is the tag, but 441 is a bird that I got to go in. It was a wild hatch chick from the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
And I got to go in, and I was fortunate enough to hike down into the Grand Canyon, complete backcountry, complete dehydration, 100-degree heat, and find that bird. And I was the first one to see that bird, first human to see that bird in the wild. So holds a lot of special meaning to me.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to cry hearing that story. That's really awesome to be the first person to ever see that bird. That's
and now,
really cool.
Really even cooler, he's having his own young in the wild. So they're F2 generations. So he's reproducing at this point.
That's
also
incredible.
Goes to show how old I am and how long I've been.
Well, I think that's one of the really cool things about the Peregrine Fund is that we have seen species recover in the process of recovering from becoming endangered, and I love it because it just shows that there is hope for conservation, and I think the condors embody that. It's really exciting.
Couldn't agree more. We haven't discussed how many condors there are yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
Have they all left yet, or is there still one left? Yeah, okay, so 4 out of the 5, I believe, have left the pen. That means we had 105 condors in our population here in the Southwest coming into today. So that means we're at 109, hopefully going to make it 110 by the end of this broadcast. That puts, there's over 300 condors in the wild currently. So all the different release sites in Southern and Central California and Baja California, Mexico. There's a release site down there as well. So 500 plus in the world, including all the captive birds. So yeah,
That's
we're
amazing.
doing well.
Yeah.
The trajectory here in Arizona is on the up and up, and 96 was our first condor release, and we've started from there. So it's been a slow go, and it was slower in the beginning than it is now. We've now got a population that almost 50% of the birds are of breeding age. So they're having young in the wild. We're seeing success there. We're introducing birds from captive breeding programs. So we're seeing success there, and we're growing this population. And the condors are doing well in the wild. So that's ultimately what we want to see, is a self-sustaining population.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a couple questions about the age of birds. So how old can they live to be? How old is the oldest one you know of right now? How old do they have to be to mate? All of that good stuff.
Yeah, we don't know how long they can live in the wild, but we have some good estimates, because it's probably between about 50 and 70 years if they live to old age. The trick is seeing them get to that point without having mortality or anything introduced into that equation. The oldest bird in our population is Condor 114. Let's see, he is 27 years old. So he's a great example of a bird that is a long-lived species, and condors are exactly that. They're a long-lived species. They reproduce really slowly, but they do live a long time, given the chance to live into old age.
Yeah. So what age do they start breeding?
They start to be able to breed at between 5 and 6 years of age. Generally, we see success in that category at about 8 years of age. Mm-hmm. So that's really when we start seeing birds being successful in wild reproduction.
Okay. And are they around Navajo Bridge year-round? Can you see them year-round?
They are around Navajo Bridge year-round, but if you really want to see them, and you want to see them in large numbers, Navajo Bridge in the springtime. March, April's probably the peak. We've had 30 birds at one time at the Navajo Bridge.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, that was a third of our population at that time. It's really incredible. And to see them all soaring around together, it's spectacular.
Yeah, that's really cool. We just had somebody join us from Adelaide, South Australia. How cool is that? That's neat. All right. It looks like 25 has moved in front of the door, so maybe she's thinking about it.
Get a little update here from my crew up here and see what's going on.
Out of view.
What do you guys got? Where's 25? Okay, so yeah, 25 is definitely still in the pen. I think that's our last bird.
Okay.
The other birds, if I can get a little update, are outside the pen. I think there are some at the carcass. I can see that the video feed is on that area now. You'll have to let me know if you see any of our youngsters.
Okay, so one of our release birds just took flight. It looks like they're following. Yep. The camera's following. So, Tim, Colleen asks if the condors mate for life.
Yeah, generally condors mate for life, but like with any species, there are mortalities that come into play, and there are pair bonds that are broken occasionally. It's not unlike humans, right? We do try to mate for life, and we see those birds repair. So they will. We've had some birds that have been paired for quite some time.
Okay. And Anna asks, how is the threat of lead poisoning being addressed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And a lot of people might not even know that lead poisoning is an issue for condors, but lead poisoning is actually the leading cause of mortality for all California condors in the wild. They're ingesting pieces of lead in carcasses that are left in the field. So it might just be a hunted carcass that the gut pile was removed, the offal pile, and left in the field. If that animal was shot with a lead-based bullet, it could fragment in that carcass, and they could potentially consume some of that lead. So it could come from any animal that has been shot with lead-based ammunition. And one of the great things that we're doing with the North American Non-Lead Partnership, if I can get that out there, this is another branch of the Peregrine Fund, the Oregon Zoo, and the Institute for Wildlife Studies that was started a couple years ago. And Chris Parrish, one of our biggest supporters, who's run the Condor program in the past and has greater responsibility within the Peregrine Fund at this point, he's helped start that program up. And essentially what we're trying to do is educate people on what the issues are and what the potential issues are with lead in scavenging wildlife. We are also offering alternatives to people. Arizona Game and Fish and the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources both have non-lead ammunition programs where they give out non-lead ammunition to the hunting community, as well as educate those folks on the issues. And those best alternative that we have right now is copper ammunition. Hunters have been switching to copper in pretty decent numbers in our experience here in the Southwest, and they're taking a step in conservation, right? They're helping. When we explain this issue to the hunting community, most of them did not know that this was an issue, and they're interested in helping. And it's kind of well, what can I do to help? It's not what you would necessarily, some folks would think. And we say, hey, all you got to do is, switch ammunition if you can. And if you can't, heck, haul your gut pile out of the field or bury your gut pile. Just make sure that it's not available to that scavenging wildlife. And we've had excellent response. We're somewhere up around 90% participation at this point with hunters on a voluntary basis here in Arizona, which is a fantastic number. And Utah's right behind that. So awesome to see the hunting community take action and want to continue that conservation ethic. It's awesome. It warms my heart to see people want to help, and that comes from everybody from the guy hunting out in the forest to the Audubon Society down the road. So it's really nice to see everybody pitching in.
Yeah, it takes people from all perspectives to help save a species like this. So it's pretty exciting. We do have a video that we're going to show a little bit later. CBS this morning came out and filmed you guys and some of the work you're doing and talked about the condor and lead issue and what's being done to solve the problem, how hunters are the solution, which is really exciting. Yeah, so while we were talking, 25 left. So there are no more condors in the pen.
What?
Yeah, there's been a ton of celebrating on
this is fantastic.
YouTube.
I can only imagine what the atmosphere is like down below me in the valley, where I don't even know how many people there are, but I can see lines of cars parked up and down the road. Yeah. So I'm guessing anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people that are down there watching through the spotting scopes that Swarovski's provided, through binoculars, and just talking to the Condor crew down there. It sounds like it's probably electric.
Yeah. There's a big old party going on down there. Yeah, so some of the released birds, it looks like, are on the rock there. I see Z8 for sure. So exciting. There are no more condors in that pen. They're all in the wild. There's 110 condors in Arizona now and Utah.
And we're just going to hope that we get surprised and there's another nest somewhere that we haven't been able to find, and maybe it's 111. I don't know, but we're just happy to see that number going up in the right direction.
That's so exciting. So, Tim, are you going to be releasing any other birds this year?
Yes, we do have 4 more birds to release. So we are going to probably do that sometime later in October, and it won't be a public release celebration like this. We'll kind of just put our nose to the grindstone and go to work and get it done. But it will still nonetheless be very exciting. So if you, like I said, if you're in Arizona and you're in House Rock Valley and you're near the Condor viewing area, come talk to us. We're going to be there just about every day, doing some work and monitoring birds and doing a lot of education and outreach, because that's another thing that we do on the project. We love talking to people and educating the public on what is a condor, what is the biology of a condor, what are the threats to a condor, how are condors succeeding. All these things are things that we love to talk about. So please come visit us. And yeah, we might even have a cool sticker for you. We've got a bunch of neat stickers to commemorate this day for the folks down there. So I'd love to hand some out.
That's great. Thank you so much, Tim. So we're going to keep the cameras on so that you guys can see what's going on with these birds on the carcass. I also would love to show the video of the CBS This Morning interview right now, because I think it does an excellent job of telling the lead story and has some really nice footage. And we're super grateful for CBS This Morning for coming out and doing that for us, getting the word out for us. So let's go ahead and start that video, and we'll keep the screen on in the picture-in-picture.
Hundreds of bird species are endangered across the Americas, mostly due to the destruction of nesting sites. But Connor Knighton tells us about one species at risk from a very different threat.
The California condor is the largest flying land bird in North America. What it lacks in looks, it makes up for in majesty. Its 9.5-foot wingspan leaves quite an impression if you're lucky enough to ever see one. Or 20.
Cinda Mickles was away last weekend, and when she came home, she found that 15 to 20 condors had descended on her home in Tehachapi.
This scene, captured in May, would have been unthinkable just 3 decades ago. Back then, there wasn't a single condor left in the wild. In the late 1980s, the last few California condors in existence were brought into captivity to save the species from extinction. Since then, the vultures have been bred and slowly reintroduced into the wild. There are now more than 500 total, a number that is still small enough that biologists still number them all.
They're all here for a reason, and it's not a place you want your number, because these are birds that have passed.
Chris Parrish is the director of global conservation at the Peregrine Fund. While the reappearance of condors in our skies is certainly a success story, the endangered birds are still struggling. Researchers eventually learned why.
54% of all death in our population that we monitor that intensively is lead poisoning.
Lead is a dangerous neurotoxin. It's also what most ammunition is made out of. The birds are dying from bullets. They're not getting shot by them. They're literally eating lead.
Scavenging wildlife that are obligates, like the condor, they only consume things that are already dead.
Here's the problem. When hunters kill an animal, like a deer, they often leave behind some of the remains. But they may be unintentionally leaving behind tiny fragments of lead. Lead that ends up in the condors when they swing by to enjoy a meal.
Some of those tiny fragments that strip off of those bullets we've used for 100 years can poison wildlife.
In Marble Canyon, Arizona, Parrish's team traps and tests condors.
She's still high.
Most have detectable lead levels, so they treat the birds, then release them once they're healthy.
We're in a holding pattern. We've come to a real fine understanding of what the problem is.
Yes.
And we know how to solve it. Now we have to go solve it.
But solving this can feel like a long shot.
If this wound channel were in the thoracic cavity
So I
of a
think
big game animal,
after this we
is
should
what's
just
happening
do
in there.
a
And
little
that's where those
wrap-up
fragments
and
come
then
from.
play Derek's video.
Parrish is on a mission to convince hunters to hunt with non-lead ammunition, like copper bullets, doing demonstrations across the country. It's a world he knows well.
I'm kind of a redneck hunter biologist, and these hunters are my people.
Unfortunately, copper ammunition is generally more expensive.
1.5 hours.
It's harder to find, and it's just not what people are used to.
Changing tradition is hard. It's not as simple as, here's the science, here's the logic, so do the right thing.
In 2019, California instituted a statewide ban on lead ammunition for hunting. But the California condor is also found in Utah and Arizona, states where there aren't bans. Parrish doesn't believe a legislative solution is the answer.
We have a speed limit, but people break that law too. And I'm not saying the hunters are a bunch of bad actors. I'm just saying if they don't understand it, they might well write it off as a piece of unnecessary legislation that really isn't a problem.
It seems like a very difficult law to enforce when you're out in the woods.
Almost impossible.
Instead, Parrish favors a voluntary approach. He co-founded the North American Non-Lead Partnership to reach out to hunters. So far, the response has been encouraging. An estimated 90% of deer hunters on Arizona's Kaibab Plateau now hunt with non-lead or pack out all remains.
We know that hunters are the only ones that can solve this problem. So by pointing to them and saying you're doing a bad thing, that's not going to work. You need to appeal to their conservation ethic and their history of conservation and saying, here's yet another opportunity where we as hunters can leave a healthier environment for all of the critters that live in it, not just those that we hunt, for future generations to enjoy.
One day, Parrish hopes hunters across the country will shoot with alternative ammunition to protect all scavenging animals. Until then, he'll keep getting the word out to help get the lead out.
All right, well, I love that video because it really shows the work that the North American Non-Lead Partnership is doing. It's something that I, as a Peregrine Fund employee, am proud that we are not just a part of, but got to help found, because I really do believe this is the future for the California Condor. And like you guys always say, you're working yourselves out of a job. So hopefully that'll happen at some point very soon so that we can put you to work saving another endangered species that's out there in the world.
Wouldn't that be something? I'd be all for it.
It'll happen. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. Yeah. So Tim, we've had an incredible day. This has been amazing to get to see 5 condors take off into the wild for the very first time. It's a day that I don't think I'll forget anytime soon. And we did have a special way that we wanted to close today. We've dedicated this condor release to a friend of ours who we lost way too early. So Tim, would you be willing to introduce a special video that we've made for him?
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Here on the Condor Project at the Peregrine Fund, we really are a family. We consider ourselves family members because we live, eat, breathe, everything. It's all condors in what we do, and we get to know each other very closely and developed amazing friendships and relationships on this project. And Derek Buckner is one of those guys who I had the pleasure of working with, and an incredibly gentle, kind soul, smart, handsome man that we unfortunately lost far too early last year. So we dedicate this release to Derek and his memory and his family. He will always be a part of our family and a part of our hearts, and we will never forget any of those special moments. So we miss you, Derek.
And we're fortunate enough to have a video that his mom made for us. And then Derek wrote a song about condors, and we're going to share with you a video he made of him singing that song.
Hello, my name is Murian Human, and my son is Derek Buckner, who is being honored today as part of this 26th annual release of the condors. Derek was a member of the field team here and worked on the Condor Project for 2 years, in 2009 to 2011. He died a year ago, and we are honoring Derek today for the work he did here and recognizing the positive influence that the Condor Project had on him and his career. After leaving the Condor Project, he continued his avian interests at Point Blue in California, where he worked on their songbird breeding program. But his career was interrupted in 2012 when he was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Over the next 8 years, with multiple rounds of chemotherapy, 2 stem cell transplants, he defied the leukemia, completing a master's degree in environmental horticulture at the University of Washington, and also working when he could, doing restoration ecology in Seattle parks. Throughout the illness, Derek maintained a hopeful but realistic attitude and showed incredible resilience in the face of this terrible disease. He married the love of his life, Brianna Lovell, in 2016, and together they had a fabulous son, Alpin, now 4 years old. During the past 8 years, he kept up his passionate interest in birds and ecology, volunteering for Washington State field programs, doing surveys, planting his own pollinator garden, and adding to his life bird list. Derek was in fair condition, actually, all the way to the end. He did a full day of birding on Whidbey Island just the week before he died on September 29th last year. I'd like to share some things that Derek wrote about his experiences on the Condor project. I quote, "Studying condors continued my interest in using birds as indicators, this time for environmental toxins. Our research showed that hunters' use of lead bullets was making condors sick and killing many of them when they scavenged on the remains of deer left by hunters. Furthermore, condors were not the only victims in the system. Coyotes, ravens, and hawks, to name a few, were eating the same poisoned food and dying, underscoring the perils of hunting with lead ammunition. I was disheartened to discover dead condors and see such a magnificent bird caught in the middle of a political battle over lead ammunition. But the work also gave me hope. I chatted with hunters as often as I could, and many said they proactively switched to non-lead alternatives. While working on the Condor project, I knew I would enjoy a career that balanced the needs of humans and wildlife." End quote. So, on behalf of Derek's dad, David, and Jonathan, his brother, who are here today, and his wife, Brianna, and son, who are watching from afar, we thank the Peregrine Fund and the Condor Project for incorporating Derek's passion into their work, including naming the new release pen on the cliff's top in honor of Derek. Thanks so much to Chris Parrish and the field biologists who work here for all that you do for condors and resource management that makes the world we live in a better place. Thanks so much.
Story begins with the stork. Ages ago, speciation fork. 10,000 years ago, they had a range from California to New York. Then humans came across the ice, a land so rich it really enticed, and that began the condor's vice, the end of big game in the Pleistocene. And then came those Europeans. Pretty soon you would hardly see him, when one was sketched by Lewis and Clark. Oh man, the future was dark. Land changed, drilling, wanted shooting, poison, disturbance, water polluting. The condor couldn't get ahead, and the coup de grace was fragment lead. Weighs 20 pounds, that's an estimate, with a memory better than an elephant. Use the Colorado as a shower, goes 100 miles in under 2 hours. Talking about the largest bird, flies above this part of the earth. Story has had less ups than downs, but things are finally turning around. 1987, that was the time when they trapped them all up. The last was AC9. Biologists shared some angry words, but lucky for us, it's a loving bird. They were 22 and they multiplied in 9 92 if you return to the sky. Thanks to captive breeding in the double clutch, seemed that the condor finally turned its luck. But they have a chick only every 2 years, and they're not adults till they reach the % alcohol of our beers, and we lose that many every year because of the bullet which we shoot our deer. So when it comes time this November, this is the part you need to remember. Flight of the Condor can't place a figure, so have copper loaded when you pull the trigger. Weighs 20 pounds, that's an estimate, with a memory better than an elephant. Use the Colorado as a shower, goes 100 miles in under 2 hours.
All right. Well, I want to thank Derek's family for letting us share this with you today. And I can't think of a better way to wrap up today's event. There's a lot of hope, and I think Derek's song expresses that for this species. So I hope you all enjoyed today's event. I hope you enjoyed getting to see 5 condors take their first flights in the wild. This recording will be on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it again if there are parts you want to see. We will also make sure to put all of the videos that were shown today individually on the YouTube channel, so if you want to go back and watch any of them, you can. And I want to give a huge shout out to my team that helped with all of the technology here behind the scenes. Matt Danahel, who's our engagement coordinator, has spent the last couple of months traveling around and shadowing the Condor team so that he could take all the footage and put together these amazing videos that we were able to share today. And Dan Young, who is our marketing coordinator, was the guy who was posting on social media every day to get the word out about this release. So thank you to Matt and Dan. These guys were working literally day and night to get this event together. And Tim, I'm sure you have some people there on your side in Arizona that you'd like to give a shout out to.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, there's so many people. First, let's give a real big thank you to our sponsors in Swarovski Optics. Without those, fantastic. I mean, those are top-notch optics that we get to use, and we're very fortunate. So thank you to Swarovski, as well as Traeger, for being sponsors of the event, and to all of our partners. You know, this is National Public Lands Day, like we've said, and the BLM is a huge part of celebrating our public lands. So let's keep our lands public and continue to celebrate this, because what a gift it is to be able to be up here. And then we have so many other partners that I could try to name. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they manage the entire recovery program. So without their assistance, this wouldn't be possible. In our state agencies, Arizona Game and Fish and Utah Department of Wildlife Resources, and our national parks, we have both Grand Canyon National Park and Zion National Park involved, as well as national forests, the Kaibab National Forest, the Dixie National Forest. We also have folks over at Glen Canyon National Recreation Area, and then a huge thanks to our partners at Liberty Wildlife Rehabilitation Facility down in Phoenix, Arizona. If we have an injured condor or a sick condor, they are always happy and willing to step in and help us out. And most importantly, thank you guys, because this is only possible because of the public. Working for a nonprofit like the Peregrine Fund is an incredible experience, and knowing that so many public funds come into this program so that we can make this work happen on the ground, and it translates directly into boots on the ground, makes me so happy to know that it's actually happening because of you all. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And we'd love to have you join the flock. So if you'd like to become a member, please consider doing so, because our members are the reason why we're able to do all the work that we do. And we can't thank them enough for the support that they provide. So I think we've done it, Tim. We have 5 birds.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We have, in fact, done it. So 5 more birds flying wild in the Arizona skies, probably soon to be flying in the Utah skies as well, given the way this goes. But what a great success. And let's continue this into the future. Look forward to doing it again next year.
Yep. Every year we get a little bit better with the technology, and next year will be no exceptions. So thank you, everybody, for your patience with us and for joining us today, and we'll see you next year.